This is WCBG, broadcasting live from Wagner College in Staten Island, New York. WCBG, small college, big voice. This is Jeanine, and today's interview is with Nautical Mile. If you haven't heard of them, definitely check them out and stay tuned for this interview. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Dan.
How you going?
It's good. Okay.
I hear you. I think we'll have Caleb joining us in a second as well.
Okay.
That sounds like
Morning.
So, can you introduce yourselves for me and our listeners?
Yeah, so I'm Dan, guitarist for Nautical Mile, and we've also got Caleb who plays drums, and Brodi and Nick unfortunately couldn't be here obviously at the time that we're doing this, but yeah, so Dan the guitarist and Caleb the drummer.
Yeah, so just the two of us today, but that's alright.
So thank you guys again. I'm going to keep apologizing that it's super early there. I'm so sorry.
That's alright.
Okay. Thanks again for doing this. I greatly appreciate it. So my first question for you guys is, how'd y'all become a band?
So basically we didn't really know each other before it started. There was sort of a post in the Facebook group that was made looking for local musicians, and it sort of fell into place. Caleb and Brodi, the singer, knew each other a little bit before the band started, but not more than sort of like a passing acquaintance. And we sort of all met through that, and yeah, that's pretty much where it started. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Caleb, but yeah, it started over the internet, really.
Pretty spot on. Yeah, that's it. So, and then yeah, sort of just went from there, I suppose. So no one really knew each other that well, I suppose. Just pretty much made the band from a music forum, I think, and we ended up where we are now. So, yeah, I suppose that's not how a lot of bands start, actually. I think so. Yeah, we just sort of built it from that.
That's pretty cool. I love how kind of you guys started just that way. It shows the connectedness of music and how that's so important. And I think that's pretty cool. So what?
Yeah, it's worked out quite well.
That's great. So what are your influences?
There's a massive list. I think all four of us would have some influences would be spot on, be exactly the same as others, and then others would be very far-fetched, I think. Bands like A Day to Remember is one that all of us will agree on every time. Neck Deep, Stake Champs, the Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, a lot of bands in that sort of genre there. But then I think some of the other members have a lot of other influences as well that are a little bit different, but then they can also bring that into what we play collectively as well. So I'm not sure if you have anything else, Dan, to add to that one.
No, I think that's pretty much what I was going to say. Yeah, I think collectively we're all massive A Day to Remember fans, and like Caleb said, Neck Deep, State Champs, etc. So that's really the common thread. But yeah, we all have our own sort of influences from other stuff that we listen to. So
awesome. So what are you currently listening to?
What do you got there, Dan?
What I currently listen to? Good question. What have I listened to? I've been listening to the album Meant Well by Parting Ways, who are a band from Vancouver, quite a lot recently, and also the Youth Fountain album. What's it called? I can't remember. Letters to Our Former Selves, that's what it's called. I've been listening to that quite a bit as well. They actually have got like a couple of members that they share, so it makes sense to be listening to both of them at the same time. But yeah, that's what I've really been spinning over the last couple of weeks or so. I mean, I know that they both came out a few months ago now, but slowly got around to it.
Nice.
Yeah. I suppose I listen to a lot of stuff, the same stuff that Dan does as well, and maybe bands like Trophy Eyes, which are from Australia, a band called Being as an Ocean, which are American, a little bit heavier there, I suppose, as well. Like we like a lot of like post-hardcore sort of music as well, I guess. You Meet Six. So I don't know. It kind of goes either way, I guess, but it's all pretty similar at the end of the day, I think.
I love asking that question because sometimes it helps me figure out what bands I should check out and what I should listen to. Staff tends to joke, I live under a rock. If it's modern music, I don't know what it is. So, no, it's
There's a huge list. It's difficult. There's too much to find, I suppose. It would take you ages.
Right. It's crazy. Like, it's a vast collection of music today, and sometimes I feel like I kind of like pigeonhole myself within certain genres that I listen to, but at the same time, like, I find bands I love, so it's great.
Yeah, that's it.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Spotify makes it easier to find those bands as well now, I think, because how that platform sort of set up too, which is it can be handy.
That actually leads to my next question. What is your opinion on streaming services like Spotify?
Blessing and a curse, really. I mean, like in terms of for a music consumer, they're great. Don't get me wrong. Like I've had a Spotify subscription for 6 or 7 years now. For the consumer, they're great, and the fact that you can just hit play on a song and be shown a load of music you've never listened to before after you've heard it or any of that is fantastic. And just the accessibility of music is like it never was previously. But then from the artist side of view, it's not great. It's a shame that the dominant form of music consumption now is through streaming, and it's basically all but killed any idea of revenue from selling music. The only way bands will make money these days is by touring and selling merchandise, because let's face it, hardly anybody's buying CDs anymore or even buying downloads. It's all paying a subscription to Apple Music or Spotify or Pandora or what have you, and streaming. But again, blessing and a curse. Great for the consumer, not so great for the artist. But at the end of the day, you've got to get your music out there to as many people as possible. So these platforms do make it very easy to do that.
It is a love-hate relationship there, because some of the things that the platforms do bring is what we never had before, I suppose, which does, as Dan said, does make it easier to get your music out there and have it in front of everyone's face. But at the same time, it's I suppose on a financial status, it's sort of killing. It has killed the music industry on the monetary side of things. There, when you're putting out music, and physical albums and things don't really exist anymore. I think it's. I know no one has CD players and things as well, so that's kind of a technological thing as well. But it has brought made it very difficult at the same time for a lot of bands, I think.
At the same time, though, like, accessibility is huge for artists. Like, there's a good chance that we wouldn't be talking if we weren't on streaming platforms, because we're a band from Australia, the opposite side of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It gives us the ability to reach a worldwide audience. Whereas if it was, if physical music was still the king, then it would be completely different. Our market would be completely different. Our biggest listener base is in the US. More than 60% of our monthly listens come from the US, and we wouldn't have that without streaming.
Yeah, I love how streaming is great for connectivity and exposure, but I do wish you guys got paid better from it, since I know the pay for streaming is crap. But yeah. So that leads to my next question. You were talking about owning physical CDs and albums. What is your most prized album that you own?
What do you got there, Dan? Do you still buy physical albums or what?
Yeah, I've got a load of vinyls. What have I got that I really like? I've got a bunch of signed Enter Shikari vinyls, I suppose. That would be my most treasured or prized or so, but just, I guess, they're pretty nice, and I like collecting more collectible vinyls and things. I think they're just sort of, I don't know, there's something about them, and I think a lot of people who collect them are the same. There's just something more artistic is the right word, but there's just something a bit more inherently collectible about them. And maybe CDs will get to that point at some time, I don't know. But yeah, I'd say probably Manta Shikari vinyls.
Yeah, I actually, I'm guilty. I don't actually really buy physical CDs anymore as much as I wish everyone did. I'm one of those people that just doesn't. But I do have a few, like Homesick, which is a Dated Member album, which is probably like one of my favorite albums ever. So I do actually have a physical copy of that one. And I have a few others lying around here and there, but I actually haven't bought one in a long time. So I couldn't contribute a whole lot to that question, unfortunately, because I just have started relying on streaming a bit too much, I think.
It's a pretty interesting question. I normally ask it. I collect vinyl, so I try to see what other people have. Since I know some people are like super obsessed with it, I just like going to the flea markets and seeing what they have. So you'll never know what you find. And I think that's the best part.
Yeah, exactly. I've got like a whole mixture of stuff, but I like to try and pick up. Manta Shikari, one of my favorite bands, so I try and get anytime they do a repressing of one of their albums, and they've been pretty good actually. They've done the vinyl thing the whole way through. Anytime they do a repressing, or if they've got like limited edition ones, I'll try and pick stuff up.
Nice. So, my next question for you is, what is your rating process like?
So it's mostly me and Caleb. We'll start out with an idea. So I'll put guitar track down, send it through to him to give me some drums, and then between the two of us, we'll work on structure and put it together. And then we'll bring Nick and Brodi in because we find that we work better when we've got the basis of an idea to present to them, because then it gives Brodi something really strong to work off to write lyrics and melody. So yeah, usually it'll start with an idea from me or Caleb, and then we'll sort of flesh it out between the two of us, and then bring the others on board. And then, but it's still very much a group process. It's a step-by-step group process, I guess. Every member's involved at sort of a different stage on the timeline, and then from there we'll sort of polish it, and then once we're sort of ready and happy with it to record it, we've got a bunch of this, at least for the album when we did this. We took it into the studio, and our producer Emmett helped us sort of tweak it, because it's always good to have a fresh pair of ears, listen to it and put ideas towards it, because we've been listening to these songs for months, and like rehearsing them as they were written, and you get to a point where sometimes it's hard to hear subtle little things that you can change to make a song better. So we've that's sort of, I guess, the bulk of the process. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, Caleb.
No, it's spot on. It's pretty much how it goes, I think. So yeah, it's generally stems from guitar track that Dan's tracked, and then gets sent to me, and I just program some demo drums on my laptop, and we sort of figure it out from there, I think. So it's definitely starts with Dan and I doing those pieces there, and it becomes a finished product in the end, after a little bit more effort put in, I think. So yeah, I don't know if that's how every other band does it, but it seems to work for us, so we're pretty happy just plodding along as is, I think.
As long as it works for you guys. You guys have released some really interesting tracks. I actually have another question kind of related to this. I want you to describe your sound for me in 3 words.
Ooh, tough one. Ooh, okay. All right. Now we have to nail this now.
You can each do 3 words if it's easier.
You got any words for me, Dan? I'm trying to think.
I'd say fast. I don't remember the last time we wrote a song that was slower than 150 BPM. That's probably my fault. I don't know. I don't know if I'd describe all of our music as fast, but
It doesn't help that we put out an album with some like very big variances in some of the songs. Let me
That
think.
could be a word. Like dynamic.
Yeah, I'd say
dynamic. There you go. That's a good one.
dynamic would be correct. I think, yeah. So dynamic. Dan said fast. It probably is, yeah, a bit upbeat, I'd say.
But then, yeah, upbeat makes it sound happy, and not everything's super happy.
Yeah. Well, it's not
dynamic, fast, and
yeah. I suppose like most of the songs are pretty full on. Like we're yet to put out like, I don't know, acoustic songs or anything like that. So like if you listen to our music, it is pretty in your face, I think. So yeah, I don't know if that sort of gets. We come up with a few words there, didn't we?
yeah. I mean, we had to do an online interview once, where we had to describe every song on the album in 2 words. But I can't remember what I wrote for it, and I don't think there were any common themes that came up there, because I think we were doing it very song specific. But to describe something, dynamic's good. Dynamic, fast, and loud, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know if that undersells our softer songs. Yeah, I don't know. Difficult one. Never really thought about that before.
Yeah, I think I usually ask people, listeners, how they would describe it instead, and I just like kind of go with their opinion, because sometimes I'm like, I don't even know what music we write anymore, so I just let them tell me. It's sometimes confusing.
I know it's a hard question. So I just want to clarify. It's fast, dynamic, and loud.
I think let's go.
I don't know if loud undersells it, but yeah, fast, dynamic, definitely, and varied, maybe.
Very. Okay. I know a lot of the tracks I've listened to from you guys. I feel like you have a very interesting sound. Like, not interesting. I want to try to find the right word for this. It's basically a combination of different things that remind me of like early 2000s music, but not at the same time, because the riffs are like something that's maybe from like more classic rock and then also punk at the same time, but then like the lyrics kind of sound super deep, and I think it's very interesting, and I think it's a great combination.
Thank you. Like, typically my history with my guitar playing and therefore writing wasn't always like the pop punk post hardcore thing. Like, I used to listen to a lot of bands like Carnival and Muse, you know, like more proggy sort of prog rock and prog metal sort of things. And so my guitar playing's been a lot more heavily influenced by that than I like more old school punk and pop punk, like your Blinks, and then, you know, your old school punk bands like Less Than Jake and those sorts of bands. So I guess my guitar playing's been more heavily influenced by that than the newer pop punk sound, which is why it ends up sounding like it does.
For your music, what is your favorite thing that you've ever written? It could either be a riff, a lyric, or like a part of a song.
You go first, Caleb. After I think,
Yeah, that is a stiff one. I mean, I write obviously the drums. I don't play guitar, so that is a hard one. Maybe I'd say like maybe the drumming in Marionette. Some of the parts in there, like people seem to like the drums in it. I don't know. Didn't put them in there because they were difficult or anything, but maybe they sounded, I suppose. So people seem to like that. So I feel like that'd be the correct answer in this circumstance. Anything that challenges me in our songs, I enjoy, because I like to improve as a musician. So naturally, playing something difficult is the best way to do that, which is what I try to do in some of our songs. I mean, playing for the genre at the same time, you can't just put ridiculous things in there because it's not going to suit the music. So I think Pretty much anything where I can get away with playing something a little bit more intricate, something that probably excites me a bit, I think. And I think in Marionette, some of the bridges and outros and things in that song, I've managed to do that to an extent. I think for me that'd be the one to go with.
Yeah, for me, I think I'd say the song Shattered is probably my favourite one that I've written. And that was one song that we didn't do the whole group process on. Like, I basically wrote the whole song, brought it to the band, and then they went, yeah, this is good, let's put it on the album. It was the last song we wrote for the album, and it was just one of those things where I was just like, it would be silly not to include it. So I'd say that was probably the most complete thing I've ever written. But in terms of favourite, I'm not sure. I still can't go past Regicide, the track, like the whole song, I guess, there. I don't know, I'm proud of everything that's on the album for different reasons for each song. But if I had to pick a song, it would be either Regicide or Shattered. Those would be the two that I'd be most proud of.
Both good answers. And I do have to say, Caleb, the cadence in Marionette is intricate. It's nice to listen to.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it's a bit more full on, I think, than some of the others where you just got to sort of take a step back, I suppose. So, yeah, no, it's good. I hope we'll probably write a few more things like that where it's a bit maybe heavier would be the way to go, I'd say, which is definitely, I think, what we're intending to do as well. So that's good for me. So it works out well.
And Dan, I feel like for your guitar parts, you use a fuller sound for it. Is that true?
No, that's right. I mean, I think a lot of that comes to the production. We spent a lot of time, because obviously we're a single guitarist band, so we spent a lot of time working on the sound to try and make it full, like you said, and so that when we do translate the songs live, they sound massive, and I think we do a pretty good job of that. So yeah, we were quite careful with picking tones, and not so much picking how we play parts or even the parts themselves, but just on the guitar tones and the sounds and things, just picking stuff that will translate well live, and it tends to sound good on a recording too. We try and stay as faithful as we can to the recordings when we play live. So yeah, it's worked out quite well.
Awesome. So what's your favorite venue that you've played in?
I enjoyed, we played Capitol or Amplifier, which the venues are actually connected. One's a substantially bigger venue than the other, but they're at the same place. We play Amplifier mostly, and we keep going back, so it'd be rude not to say that one, I think, because we play there so often and it is a good venue. But then that's in Perth. I suppose we play a lot on the other side of the country as well, so probably have to say the Bright Side, which is in Brisbane. It's a really good venue as well. I enjoyed that one, but Dan, you might have a different opinion. So
no, I'd say I love the Bright Side. It's now called Crowbar Brisbane. But yeah, it's like an old 20th century theatre building that got converted. But it's a great venue. They look after their bands there as well, and it's always nice to get out of Perth, play on the opposite side of the country. But yeah, I'd say the Bright Side in Brisbane's my favourite that we've played at. But in Perth, yeah, Amplifier, Capitol. But I also enjoy playing at a venue called Badlands, which is set up and it's all decked out like you're in a cave. It's actually a really cool venue. The sound's great, and another one of those venues that looks after the band quite well.
What's the local scene like there? I live vicariously through everyone when they ask this question.
Pretty strong. I think Perth is one of the most isolated cities in the world. We're several thousand kilometres away from the nearest major city, which is Adelaide. It's a 3-hour flight, so it's not like you can just cruise to the next town to play a show or have bands come over, because you have to make a big effort to do it. And Perth gets skipped a lot on international bands tours of Australia, because it's just so difficult to bring a production here or to fly over for one show, because we're not a massive city. There's only about 1.5 million people here, so it's one of those places where you can only really play one show on an international tour, and because it's so far away, it's not worth it most of the time. So that's led to quite a strong local scene develop. Like, we've got a lot of very good and bands, like heavier bands that are getting a lot of recognition around the world. Bands like Vacant Home, one of the bigger ones, and then we've got bands like Carnival, Birds of Tokyo, heaps of band Tame Impala, I think, as well. I think originally, I can't remember if they are or not. I think they are. Yeah, but heaps of bigger bands. Or not so much bigger, but heaps of bands that are killing it that are from Perth, and it's all because of that isolation. It's led to a necessity to be really good to make it out.
That's awesome. I normally ask this because I'm from Staten Island in New York, and there's like no local scene. It kind of exists, but not really. Like, we only have one venue that allows live bands to play on the island, and even though we're so close to the city, it's kind of like there's not much here. We have some local bands, but it's mostly cover bands, so I like hearing where everyone else comes from and actually seeing like this vibrant scene that I wish was here, but it's not.
Yeah, I think the Australian scene is, in general, is very strong because, again, we're, this island nation, we're so far away from everything else. We kind of have to be quite strong, and there's always been a very strong culture of supporting Australian artists, and Aussies like to support Aussies. It's just a thing that they do, and yeah, so it's pretty good.
Okay, what's the weirdest question you've ever been asked in an interview?
What have you got for this, Dan? I'm trying to think of a really weird question.
There's a couple that I have in mind. I'm just trying to remember the exact wording of them because I don't want to undersell the question.
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever been asked anything which I thought, wow, this is either off topic and very weird, or just generally weird. No, I don't know. Yeah, I think I don't know if I've answered for this question. I've been alright. I mean, it wasn't weird, but obviously I struggled to answer the 3 words to describe the band's sound. But that's not weird. That's a genuine question. What do you reckon, Dan? Do you have any ideas for this one?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a weird question. I think someone asked us once, like, in a weird interview, like, if you could be any, like, confectionery item or any sort of food item, what would you be? Or like, what's the first thing you do when you get back from tour? What's the first thing you eat when you get back from tour? Just really odd questions that are like, this is not something I've ever thought about. I just eat whatever I get home and make dinner. But at the same time, I guess if people want to find out like what I have on my toast in the morning, then I'm happy to share with them. It's usually butter, but sometimes I treat myself to a little bit of Nutella. Yeah, there's those sorts of questions where it's like you go in for expecting a music interview and you come out with like, giving your top tips for making poached eggs.
What is your opinion of releasing an artist's unreleased music after they've passed away? Should it be released or should it not?
It depends on the state of, like, for me it depends on a lot of things, but I guess it depends on like the state of at which it was when the artist passed. If it's an album that was scheduled for release anyway, then sure, why not? Or if it was like fully completed B-sides or that sort of thing, then I guess that's fine too. But if it's just snippets and like vocal stems and all sorts of that sort of stuff, I don't want to hear half-finished bits and pieces from someone who's not alive anymore, especially if it comes across like a very desperate cash grab. I think so you've got to be really careful. I think it's easy to tell if the artists themselves would have approved it if they had been alive, or if it was the sort of thing they would do. If it sounds like the sort of thing that they would release, then sure, I'm happy with it. But at the same time, if it's clear that it's, I guess, a cash grab by the estate or the label or something, then it's not as acceptable.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty much the same. Like, if it's the songs are finished, but they're just not released, I don't see why not. Like, they didn't write those songs most likely not to release in the first place, so they would most likely always had the intentions to put it out there. So if it's finished tracks, that I don't know, the artist did have the intention of putting out anyway, or so people can think. I don't see why not. I don't see why you wouldn't show it to everyone, I suppose, but that's just my opinion. It could be, everyone else will have a different take on that one, I think.
Yes, this question has got very different answers. Some people have compared it to Kurt Cobain's journal. Other people are like, I love hearing these artists. Obviously, I want to hear the track. And some people are like, we have to respect what the artist wanted because we don't know what they wanted. They might not have been happy with what was released. And I feel like it's something that we should be talking about nowadays.
I think it's pretty easy to tell what the artist's opinion of it would have been, for the most part. I can guarantee that Kurt Cobain would never have approved of, half of the Nirvana back catalogue being released, which he shouldn't have done, but at the same time there's two other members in that band. So it's hard to tell. I guess for a band it's different. You've got other members, and it's people close to it and people that are in the position to make those decisions will know what the artist's wishes were, or at least whether they like the songs. But again, if it's stuff that was completed as a B-side or as actually fully recorded, or even stuff that was meant for release later down the track, then I don't see why not. But we just have to be careful and always ask what would they have wanted.
Yeah, like our PR director Grace came up with this question because of the Little Peep song that was released and how it kind of sounded like it was like the lyrics or the vocal track was a cut of a demo and it didn't sound fully right.
Yeah, and that just tarnishes the legacy of the artist if they're releasing something, because you will get people who don't realise that the artist is dead or has passed on or whatever, and they will hear these songs possibly for the first time and go, "Oh, what the hell is this? What was all the fuss about?" So it's better to end on a high than to have your estate releasing your music that you weren't happy with.
So if you can perform with any artist, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Don't remember. For me, anyway. I think the only reason, there's probably a few, but I suppose like that's the first proper heavier band that I ever listened to, and I've loved them ever since, and the majority, if not all of their music. So, and they're still playing massive shows, and I still enjoy the music they put out today, which is cool because it's been, I don't know, more than 15 years or something ridiculous. And they've just continually put out good quality music. I think they've sort of stayed true to the genre that they always intended to play, which is something you don't see very often anymore. As a lot of bands are changing. Like Bring Me Horizon are a good example of that. What they did play when they started to what they do now is a big difference, and like I don't hold anything against them for it. Like I can understand why, but they remember have sort of stayed a little bit closer to what they did play at the start of everything to what they play now. So yeah, I'd probably say them for that one.
Yeah, I think I'd love to play with them because I think they put on a great live show, and obviously they've been a big influence on the sound of the band. But I mean, I'd love to play with any of my favourite bands, really. And Shikari, Feeder, any of those sorts of guys. I'd love to go out and play shows with them, tour with them. It's just sort of one of those dream situations, really.
I love that answer. Both of you gave very good answers for that. And I think that's great that those are fantastic artists, so it's always nice to see. So I have one more question for you.
You're all good.
What are your plans for 2020? New decade, new music?
That is correct.
Yeah, so we've obviously released the album in October last year, so we're sort of still pushing that. We toured Australia for the release of the album and looking at trying to get overseas, but I think that will be later in the year if that's going to happen. So sort of sitting on that. I was sort of not really sitting on that. We're sort of running the promo cycle for that at the moment, but we're actually just started writing again. We didn't want to leave it too long before trying to start writing for following up or whatever's coming next. So we're back sort of writing some music now. What that's going to look like, whether it's going to be a single or an EP or even just towards another album, we're not really sure yet. We just want to make sure we've got material that we're happy with in the bank, so to speak, and we can go from there. We can see what happens. We're not under really any pressure to create at the moment, which is good. It means that we sort of can put a bit of time into everything and make sure we're happy with it. And then at the same time, we've got the album released and we've got the promotion for that. We've got a couple of shows coming up with some bands that we're friends with in Perth. So that's sort of the plan, is just to keep playing live, keep writing, and then see where it takes us. No, thank you so much, Jeanine.
Okay, have a great day.
Yeah, enjoy the rest of yours. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Again, that was Nautical Mile. Be sure to follow them on their socials and check out their music. We actually have a few tracks up after this interview, so stay tuned.
Say goodbye, I'll leave them in the past. I'm calling out to you. Can you hear me? I am screaming loud and clear while I shed these tears. I can't be near you. You lied to me right to my face. You tried to Take